All right, everybody, welcome back to Heath Barn. This is episode 130, part one. Going to have another two-parter. Then it was with Jay Delsing. He is a pro golfer out of St. Louis, and he has lots of wonderful stories, and he was extremely entertaining, very funny, very self-deprecating. We get into, he kind of starts from the beginning. His dad played professional baseball for close to 20 years. Between the minors and majors, he was in the majors for, I believe, 9 or 10 seasons. So he talks about that, talks about growing up. He went to college at UCLA, so he talks about that. Then he gets into his professional career, things like that. Tells some great stories. He talks about Tiger, talks about John Daly, and he's just a wonderful guest because, again, he is entertaining and he's funny, legit funny, self-deprecating. Great guest. This is part one. Part two that I'll put out Thursday, he answers some of my buddies' questions about golf because I'm not a great golfer. I'll literally go golfing about once every 3 years, and it's usually a scramble where I'm just kind of messing around. So if I put time in, maybe I'd be decent. Maybe I wouldn't. So I took questions from some of my buddies and asked him to him, and he gives great answers and great responses and gives great advice for that. That will be Thursday, part two. Part one tonight that I'm putting out. Again, great episode. The audio quality, you may have to turn it up a little bit more when he's talking just because of the way we did it and everything. Like, I'm louder than him, but I went through and kind of tried to fix it, so I think it's better. But he is, you'll definitely want to listen to everything he has to say because he's just funny, and he tells great stories. I mean, he's a pro golfer for 19 years straight, and tour stories, all kinds of stuff. So, a lot of fun. I want to thank him very, very much for coming on. This is episode 130, part one, with Jay Delsing. Thank you very much for coming on, Jay. Thank you for listening in. Hiet. All right, everybody, thank you very much for listening, and I'm here with Jay Delsing. Jay, thank you very, very much for coming on.
Yeah, right on, John. Good to be with you, buddy.
Yeah. I guess my first question, this is pretty good timing, but what were your thoughts on the last several holes of the U.S. Open yesterday?
Oh, yeah, it's just gut-wrenching for Rory McIlroy. I mean, I'm a huge fan. He's waffled more on his opinions than anything, on any person that I know, with Liv and I'm not poking fun at him because of the divorce, but I'm a person that's been divorced, and he was going to get divorced. He's not divorced, and I just feel bad for him. A good buddy of mine, Brad Paxton, is his putting coach, and the guy has just put himself in some really, really good positions. And the big question is, John, did Bryson DeChambeau win the 124th U.S. Open? Or did Rory McIlroy lose it? And I mean, that's up for discussion. But I will say this, John, the shot that Bryson DeChambeau hit on the 72nd hole yesterday was probably the greatest shot that's ever been hit on the 72nd hole of any U.S. Open. Greg Norman's putt at Winged Foot with Fuzzy Zoeller comes to mind when he holed that 90-foot putt, but then lost in a playoff to Fuzzy the next day. And for this thing to go down the way it did, I mean, that shot could go anywhere.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it really could.
Right. Yeah, I thought that was amazing. But do you like the? I mean, that was one thing I was going to ask you too. That on all the shows today, it was like, well, did Rory win it, or did Rory lose it, or did DeChambeau win it? And those questions kind of annoy me a little bit because I feel like DeChambeau did a hell of a job, and Rory bogeyed throughout the last 4 holes, so it can be both, I guess, but
well, I mean, that's why there's so many shows,
right? Exactly.
Especially now.
Yeah, I agree. Well, if you don't mind, maybe telling the audience a little bit about yourself. If people want to know a little bit about Jay Delsing, can you give a little bit of your background and things like that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, no worries. I'm a Midwestern guy. I love the Midwest. I grew up in North County area of St. Louis, Missouri. My dad was a professional baseball player. He played 20 years, 10 years in the minors and 9 years in the big leagues. He played for St. Louis. He played for the New York Yankees. Was on the 1949 New York Yankees World Series team. So, in my house we have the World Series ring from 1949, which is super cool. And John, it looks like a high school class reunion.
Yeah.
Compared to the modern days, but. Yeah, so I love sports, love all sports. I played all sports when I was a kid. When I grew up, it was, depending on the season, is the sport we played. So when the weather got cold, we played football and we played soccer. And then when it was too cold to be outside, I played basketball. And, I would have played baseball and golf had our high school team let me. But, that wasn't a thing back then. So
right.
It was, I was just a sports kid, always run the ball. I'm fourth of five. I have three older sisters, a younger brother, and we didn't grow up with any money. So we spent the whole, in a 800, John, with one bathroom. And I don't know if you have sisters, but bathrooms and sisters, it's a crazy
oh yeah,
kind of combo. So
yeah,
we spend most of our time outside and around balls, and when your house isn't super nice and you don't have a lot of room, you wind up going outside and figuring stuff out.
Right.
So that's kind of what my brother and I did, and so it was pretty clear to me that from some of the questions I heard that if I didn't get some sort of scholarship, I probably wasn't going to be able to go to college. So that was really my biggest goal in life, was to try to figure out a way to get my college paid for. So I was fortunate enough I almost won the U.S. Junior when I was a kid, and so I was, this is before the internet and before cell phones and before social media and all this stuff. So it was a totally different time. But I got a scholarship to UCLA, which was absolutely fantastic, and I just loved my time out there. I played on one of the best college golf teams of all time with Corey Pavin, Steve Pate, Duffy Waldorf, Tom Pernice. Scott McCarron was on that team, but at the time still wasn't playing well enough to make a difference then. But they go on to have a great PGA Tour career and a wonderful Champions Tour career. So yeah, the whole thing for me has been kind of a storybook. I don't know, you have a lot of guys in the show, but I'm as lucky you guys you'll ever have on the show, man. Things could have gone a lot of different ways for me, and it's been really, really good.
Right.
Really, really good.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about your dad. Could you have any stories? I looked him up a little bit. There was his best season. I had the stats, and then my technological skills failed me, so now it's like I can't look him up because I'm doing this on a FaceTime. But I remember there was one year he had 11 homers, and I looked at his OPS, and it was 816, and that was his best year. And if he played for the Cardinals right now, he'd be leading the team in OPS because we don't have so. Now he had a nice little career there.
We got struggled. Yeah, my dad was a really good defensive player. He led the American League in fielding percentages 2 years in a row as a center fielder. So he may or may not have had a Golden Glove. They just weren't around at the time. So yeah, it was a different era though, John. There was only 16 teams, not 32.
Right.
AAA was a big deal because a lot of times you made more money in AAA and you got to play, and so. There wasn't talk of even a pension back then.
Yeah.
And my dad was fortunate enough to get grandfathered in on some pension stuff. But, it was just a different era. And my dad grew up on a dairy farm in Wisconsin. So playing Major League Baseball was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
And he would have, done anything to get where he got and to get what he had. So, yeah, it was cool. He retired the year I was born, so my three older sisters got to travel and do some winter ball, spring training, things like that. But some of the cool things that happened to me, like when I got my PGA Tour card the year after I graduated from UCLA in 1983, so I got my card in '84, and I started playing, and I was fortunate enough to have a long career. It wasn't what I would call a great career, but it was. When you're going through it, John, you don't really know what the hell. You're just got your head down and you're trying to play
yeah.
and learn and do as well as you can. And as I look back at it, I wish I would have won some tournaments. I wish I would have won some big tournaments. I mean, as a kid, I was on this little crappy putting green, dreaming of winning the U.S. Open and dreaming of winning the Masters and making putts to do that, you know. And it didn't happen, but I did get to meet some phenomenal people. I mean, one day I was up in Vail, Colorado, playing in the Gerald Ford Invitational, so I got to play with President Ford.
Oh, cool.
And I turn around before one of the days, and I'm just kind of loosening up, and I turn around, and Yogi Berra and Whitey Ford are standing behind me.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I mean, you know, can you imagine? And I was like, hey, guys, you know, what's going on? Where are your clubs? You want to hit some balls? And they're like, oh, gosh, we didn't mean to bother you. We just wanted to see how Jim and Roseanne were. That's my mom and my dad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I was like, wow, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
I got to meet DiMaggio and Casey Stengel and some really cool stuff. I did get to see my dad play in a old-time reenactment game. I was probably about 10 years old. It was at Bush 1. And Bush 1. So it was Sportsman's Park is where my dad played.
Right.
The Bush Stadium where I grew up, that's Bush 1. So he played for the Yankees against the Cardinals. And I was a kid, you know, from St. Louis, and I'm sitting up there watching my dad play, and I'm like, geez, I just hope my dad doesn't strike out. You know? and he hit 2 doubles. He hit one off the right field wall and hit one over in the right center field gap. He was a left-handed hitter. So
right.
It was super cool, and I got to play golf with Stan Musial in my life. I got to just do some really, really cool things that the sports world, the sports community just kind of opened up. So, yeah, it was really super cool, really fun.
Right. Oh, definitely. You were talking about golf, and what exactly led you to UCLA? I mean, were there other options, and you just because it's a long way from the Midwest. So, what led to you getting out there?
I was obviously going to go to the best situation that I had, and like I said, I nearly won the U.S. Junior. So back in the day, we didn't have the HHEA, we didn't have all of these fancy select things like my daughters that played volleyball and things like that did. So there were 3 basic national tournaments that you could try to locally qualify for and try to put yourself on the map, so to speak. So one was the U.S. Junior, one was the PGA Junior Championship, and the other was the Insurance Youth Classic. And so I qualified for all 3 of those a couple of times, but never really did anything memorable. And then one year, I think when I was 16, I nearly won the U.S. Junior. We were playing up in we were in Delaware, and Wilmington, Delaware, and I almost won. I wound up losing in 21 holes to the eventual winner in either the quarterfinals or the semifinals. So that put me in the blue chip category, John. So I had a lot of. I also sent out, oh my gosh, probably over 250 mailings to any school that was either equal to Missouri or south of Missouri geographically, because I needed the cold weather and I wanted to go warm.
Right.
And so I wound up with a lot of scholarships. One of the cool things I did, John, because I hadn't traveled much as a kid, is that I found out that you were allowed to have these schools pay for you to go on 6 or 8 recruiting trips. So I'm like, hell yeah. So I went to Tucson and saw U of A. I went to Phoenix and Scottsdale and saw ASU. I went to LA and saw UCLA, USC. I went to Houston and saw University of Houston. I went to South Carolina, saw University of South Carolina, saw Wake Forest. I saw, so I was like, yeah, I want to come.
Oh, definitely.
The UCLA thing was cool for me, but because I had a poster, and I didn't exactly put 2 and 2 together because I'm not very bright, but I had a poster of Bill Walton and UCLA's 88 consecutive wins. My brother and I lived in the basement of our little house.
Right.
And I remember, you got to remember, no cell phones. So the coach calls you on your house phone, which is a blue phone stuck in the middle of the wall in the kitchen.
Oh, definitely.
You're sitting there in the
I'm younger than you, but I'm not like that much younger than you. So yes, I'm with you on. I'm with you on
what. Like, hey, and this is just how we lived.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny that you don't really know that you're poor until you go other places, or you don't. I didn't know how bad the golf course I grew up on was until I started playing others. And
right.
I was like, oh, we don't have any sand traps. We don't have any. So so the UCLA thing was so awesome. Just loving sports the way I did. But the UCLA athletic department was the coolest place. One of the coolest places I've ever seen. Will Chamberlain was there every single day.
Yeah,
my time.
Man, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I have 4 daughters.
Yeah.
And they're athletes, and they play volleyball. And there's a guy, I don't know if you're into volleyball, but there's a guy that's considered the father of volleyball. His name was Karch
Karai, yes, yeah.
Karch Karai was our friend because volleyball was an obscure sport like golf back in the day.
Right.
And so Karch would come out and watch us hit some balls, and, he'd be like, God, you guys are really good. And we're like, so we'd go watch him play volleyball, and we're like, dude, we don't know how you do what you do either. So it was just one of those things that were really, and I went through it, John. I had no concept really for how fortunate or how cool it was. I was just trying to keep my head above water and just trying to compete.
Yeah. Well, Karch Karai, man, when you think of, when I was growing up, that you think of men's volleyball, that's the first name that you think of for sure. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You go from North St. Louis County to Los Angeles. That's a big change.
Oh, I know. That's why I was wondering how all that went for you, because definitely that's a big culture shock, I would assume.
To the coolest school, yeah, it's culture shock for sure. I was completely lost, but it was, it was fun. My parents were Catholic, so I went to St. Louis U High, so I knew how to study. I knew how to, figure out the grades sort of thing. So, it became clear to me after, not a very long time that, man, I really wanted to give this golf the whole thing. I was going to have as much fun as I could. I was absolutely going to get a degree, but I was never going to be on the dean's list. You know what I mean? So
yes, I do.
It was really fun, John.
I can relate to that. If you were talking about other sports, was there any, besides golf, was there anything else that you were good enough to possibly do after high school, or was it?
I really wanted to be a professional baseball player like Dad.
Right.
But I started devoting so much time to golf that it really, and then when I went to high school and they wouldn't let me play both, it really became just one of these things. I was just going to start focusing on golf. And I was a decent basketball player. I am super tall for a golfer, the tallest golfer for a long, long time on the PGA Tour until Phil Blackmore came out. And but I was okay. Could I have played somewhere? Probably. Was I ever going to play golf? Basketball at UCLA? Not a chance in hell.
Right.
It was not nearly that good. So golf was a clear choice.
Well, 6'5", right? So were you? They put you on the block, or were you a guard, or kind of somewhere in between, or?
Yeah, it's funny because my freshman year I was only 5'10".
Oh, really?
I was a 2 guard my freshman year, and then my sophomore year I was playing with my back to the basket. So because I had grown to about 6'4" in one summer. So you want to talk about a strange summer when you grow that much, your body, your feet, the whole. It's just
you get a little gangly.
Oh man, and I'm not the most blessed non-clumsy person ever. So I didn't need any help falling and tripping over the free throw line and things like that. But yeah, so I wound up doing a little bit of both. I wound up. I can remember my junior and senior years. We had a guy named Steve Stepanovich who went number 2 in the NBA draft behind Ralph Sampson.
Uh-huh.
He was playing at our rival school. He was a 7-footer, and he was a basketball player. He was a basketball player like I was a golfer, right? And
yeah.
I held him to probably 30, 35 a night whenever we played. And I think his average was probably 25.
Yeah.
It was just one of those deals. It was frustrating as hell. I had, that's when you have 5 fouls, you really got to make your fouls count. And when someone's that tall, it doesn't matter.
Right. Oh, definitely.
It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, when you went pro, are there, we don't have to get into like a lot of that, but is there a story or two that maybe the audience would think was really cool? And we don't have the restraints of normal radio, so if whatever you want to talk about, but if there's anything cool that happened while you're on tour, maybe a story or two that would sticks out.
Oh my gosh! Well, the one of the craziest things, the hardest things I've ever done is to go through the qualifying tournament. It's 6 rounds of golf, and it's absolutely pure hell.
Yeah.
because you don't play anything that's 6 rounds long. It's usually 4 rounds long, and when you get to 4, when you get to the end of round 4, instead of the tournament being over, you still have 2 more rounds to go. And back then there was only one opportunity a year to be able to get through, to get your PGA Tour card. So if you jack that up, you're out for a year. So it's more mini tours, more trying to play overseas, trying to do whatever. And I was fortunate to get through that. I remember playing the last day with my buddy Steve Pate, who was my college teammate, roommate stuff. And he gets finished on 18, and there's water all over this green down Palm Springs, and he takes his glove off and he throws it in the lake. He takes his ball markers, throws it in the lake. He empties his pockets, throws it in the lake. I said, dude, what are you doing? He's like, I don't want anything on me, touching me, reminding me of this experience. It was like pure hell.
Yeah.
And it's, there's, oh my gosh, there's just nightmare stories about, guys missing 3-foot putts and having to wait an entire year. I was pretty lucky. I had a good record going back to the qualifying school. Little did I know I was going to, go back several times. I played for 19 years in a row without losing my card, meaning if I didn't finish in the top 125, I went back to the Q school that year and got my card back. So the Q school's just a disaster. You don't want to go anywhere near the bathrooms on round 6. It's like people are dying. So you just learn all of this weird stuff. But then getting on tour was crazy. So I'll tell you a story on my first tournament.
Yeah.
Was at Pebble Beach, playing in, it was called the Bing Crosby Clan Bake at the time. This is 1985.
Gotcha.
And the weather at Pebble Beach is just pure shit. It's raining sideways, and the wind is blowing, and it's probably 45 degrees out, John, and I am so excited I can't stand it. So
it's like that Caddyshack. It's like that Caddyshack when Bishop keeps playing. Yeah, yeah.
The good Lord would never rain on my grave.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he gets struck by lightning. I love that movie.
Oh yeah.
So we're standing there. There's no real dedicated driving range, and there's oh my gosh, people are waiting to tee off. The veterans are bemoaning this terrible weather, and I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
It's so cool, PGA Tour and all. And so one of the best players on tour was Curtis Strange, and a slot opens up right next to him, and so I jump in there, and I don't know him at all, never met him. And John, it is raining, and the tee is soggy as hell.
Yeah.
And my first shot with my sandwich, I'm just trying to hit a little 50-yard, just to get loose. I hit about 3 inches behind it, and I look and I Picasso the back of Curtis Strange's white Nike sweater with mud and water and dirt. And I mean, I don't know if you know anything about Curtis Strange, but he's a baller.
Yeah.
And he's got this look, and I'm like, dude, I am really sorry. I'm my first tournament, and he's looking at me like, I could kill you right now. And I was like, come on, man. I know you got a whole closet full of those sweaters.
That's true. Yeah.
It's not that big, but so it was really unbelievable feeling to walk up and to be playing next to some of your idols.
Right.
I got to play with Jack Nicklaus. I got to play with Arnold Palmer, Tom Watson, Seve Ballesteros, Tiger, Phil, everybody.
Yeah,
Tiger
it's amazing.
Came around longer, but I mean, it was a real interesting. It's just an unbelievable dream come true. Really.
Right.
I mean, like I said before, being the dad of 4 daughters, to be able to tell them, hey, somebody's got, and the girls were volleyball players, somebody's got to be the outside hitter for the national team. Why not you?
Right.
Well, it happened to me. It can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it really can. If you work hard enough, you dream high. I tell these kids nowadays, I do a little bit of coaching and just a little bit of motivational stuff, and I'm like, don't aim for the middle. Shoot high.
Yeah.
You never get to the top by aiming for the middle.
That's exactly right.
It's so weird how there's so many parents these days are like, oh, gosh, I don't want her to be disappointed, or I don't want him. And I'm like, you got to talk to somebody else, man.
Right.
If you're not willing to take a punch in the nose and see if you're going to get your ass back up off the canvas, I'm not interested in you.
Yeah.
Because life is going to run you over. And it does to all of us, even the greats. Well, how do you think Rory McIlroy's feeling right now?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
He doesn't give a shit, John, about money. He doesn't care about any of that stuff.
Right.
He wants that trophy.
Yeah. And that last yesterday watching that was kind of painful. But you're right though. I mean, they're kids these days, and oh my gosh, that's a whole other discussion. But they're just so impatient too. It's like if they can't get something right away, they don't want to work hard enough for it. It seems like, and they want that instant success.
Instant crap. Yep, they want that. My girlfriend bought me. I love music, and I suck at music. I probably shouldn't even be allowed to listen to music because I'm so bad at it. But I love going to shows. We're going to Eddie Vedder's a bucket list guy for me. So we're going to see Eddie Vedder in Southern Cal this fall. She bought me a guitar, and I'm like, because we'd be sitting. What show? We went to Austin City Limits last year. And my girlfriend Stephanie is just a super cool woman, and we went down there. She took me down there for my birthday, and we were just, jamming with Mumford & Sons and Lumineers and all these.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And I said, gosh, man, I just wish I had some sort of musical ability, something, and she bought me a guitar. So talking about sucking, oh my gosh, when I play the guitar and practice the guitar right now, my dog leaves the room. It's crazy. So it is hard, and it gives you so much respect for those musicians, and then you think of the same thing for golfers, because you work so hard and you dedicate your life to some sort of craft, or whether it's anyone that spent so much time trying to get good at something, and it all that work and all that failure and all that stuff, it teaches you.
Yeah.
It really does. It teaches you, and it's. I'm not here to be philosophical or anything like that, but I mean that's what makes it the barrier of entry so difficult. Could you imagine? I say to my daughters, could you imagine if some asswipe could just walk up and do whatever they wanted in 2 weeks, or even 1 year, and you've dedicated all your life to trying to get good at this, and then they just usurp you?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I more kids need to hear that because. Yeah, that's a whole. Like I said, I have a 7-year-old, so. One thing. Hey, this is slightly off of the subject we were talking about, but he plays baseball. He's playing baseball, but I feel like he would be a good little golfer because he's got good hand-eye and stuff. Will golf swing and baseball swing? We'll swing at a golf club when you're that little, when you're that young. Screw up your baseball swing.
No.
Okay.
It won't do anything. If anything, it'll help you. Like you said, it'll help your hand-eye. Look, I grew up being taught that the hardest thing in the world to do was hit a baseball.
Yeah.
First of all, round ball, round bat, the thing is moving. It's not stationary. Then my dad played golf, and he's like, I don't know, man. That might be a tie because golf's pretty. The ball's not moving, and you can't hit this damn thing. So it's the interesting thing about the swings, John, is that the golf swing and the baseball swing are extremely similar on the lower body aspect. Now, we're not taking a step like all the modern day players do with the big strides, but the lower body leads the way. And that's exactly what happens in the golf swing. And the lower body leads the way, and then the golf club comes in last, just like the barrel of the bat. The barrel of the bat gets swung around, and if you're a little late, you hit it to right field. If you're a little early, you hit it to left field. If you hit it, if you're dead center, it goes right to center field. So the golf club is a lot like that. The difference is that we have these shafts that flex incredibly, so there's a dynamic in there. So you get these little dudes like Justin Thomas, who's 150 pounds and can crash at 350 yards.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the dynamic because they can spin, they move their hips and twitch very fast and spin very fast, and they have great hand-eye coordination. And all the golfers now are crazy fit. In my day, we went to the bar.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yeah.
I mean, we were like, we just didn't have it today. Hopefully tomorrow will be better. And we moved on.
Right.
It was like, now it's like, you got a yoga instructor and you got a chef. And
I know, yeah.
Fly into your private jet. I'm like, my private jet was Southwest. Man.
I know.
I got a lot of middle seats.
Yes, times have changed. Do you think Tiger kind of maybe started that a little bit? Like
Oh, my gosh, it's all Tiger.
You're right, that's
I
yeah.
I send Tiger a letter every year. And these guys should be kissing Tiger's ass.
Yeah.
Tiger did for golf what Wayne Gretzky did for hockey. Remember when Gretzky got sold from Edmonton down to L.A. and
Right.
McNall bought him, and all of a sudden the whole world changed because L.A. liked hockey.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It changed everything. So Wayne and I have the great fortune of having Wayne Gretzky on my show.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable. The stories he told. His father had just died, and so he, oh my gosh, he shared some really, really cool moments. But yeah, I mean, what you're seeing now, John, is all the Tiger Woods effect. All these eyeballs bring nothing but money.
Oh, definitely.
More interest. Our ratings are stupid when Tiger does anything. I mean, Tiger's jet, and I don't know much about jets, but turns on the engine, and the whole world, they got a Tiger Woods jet tracker because they want to know where he's going, what he's going to do.
Right.
It's just insane. So
yeah,
he's brought so much to the game. And one of the cooler things that he did too, John, is that, he considers himself multiracial. His dad was African American, his mom was Taiwanese.
Right.
But he opened more doors that should have never been closed. I mean, I'm not racist at all. I mean, if golf was, one thing that drives me crazy, John, is people say, "Oh, golf's a rich kid sport." Really? Have you ever tried to have your kid play hockey?
Yeah.
Give me a break, man.
Right.
I mean, you can get your son, your 7-year-old son, U.S. clubs for kids. You can get him a bag, a full set of. It's not a complete set, but it's all he needs for way under $100.
Right.
And you can take him down to the local muni, and you can pay for the same. He could probably play all day at that muni for the same amount of money that you're going to spend on a damn movie ticket.
Yeah.
These days. I don't want to hear that. That stuff drives me crazy.
Right.
Because if it was socioeconomic, John, I would have never got the chance. So
exactly.
That's just a cop-out. People aren't smart. Maybe they're afraid. I don't know.
Right.
It's for sure not the truth.
Right. Exactly. I just remember when Tiger was showing up, and I mean it kind of took the old school, like you were saying, guys, that like weightlifting and things like that. That was not something that was going on, and then he shows up and he's so fit, and then everybody now you see like Brooks Koepka and like DeChambeau and these guys, and they're just jacked, man. I mean, so it just was not a thing, back in the day, 25 years ago or so. I mean,
so John, I'm standing on the range at the Disney Classic, and Disney was a big tournament for my family because of the mouse, and we kicked the crap out of the mouse down there, spent a fortune.
Yes, I'm sure, yeah.
Pay that off. But Steve Williams is standing there, and so I plop my bag down next to Stevie because I want to know anything I can.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick up anything. It's like my buddy Bernie Federico told me about whenever Gretzky would come in the locker room, everybody would want to tie their skates next to him just to pick something up. Like, what are we missing? Like, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah.
And so Tiger comes out there, and I'm trying not to eavesdrop, but man, I'm on every damn word these guys are saying, right? And Tiger said, they're like, "Hey, what's up? What's up?" And he goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "It's so cool. I just got to 300 about an hour ago." And Steve goes, "300 what?" And he goes, 300 pounds on the bench press.
Gee, yeah.
And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Huh?
And I mean,
yeah.
This was an hour before he's going to the golf course, so it's probably 2 hours before he's playing. But I remember walking into the fitness trailer at the Byron Nelson.
Yeah.
And they got Tiger on the training table, and John, he's got his left hip over his right hip, and his right shoulder over his left. And I've never seen a human being bend like that before.
Yeah.
And I said to the boys something that I won't repeat, but I was like, just go ahead and break them in half, because they look like. And so we got talking, and I said, dude, and this was right when he started working with Butch.
Yeah.
He had won the Masters and decided he's going to change his golf swing, and we're like, wow. But
that's a whole nother. You could do a whole pod about that, but yeah.
I know. I said, so what's going on? He goes, dude, every one of my joints is hypermobile, and the only way to combat that is to strengthen everything. So I'm going on a massive weightlifting deal, and I'm like,
okay.
That doesn't sound like a great idea. So
yeah. If it ain't broke.
So fast forward to like 99 or 2000, John. I had a decent year. I was playing in the TPC, and Tiger hadn't won yet. So he's down with the slumlords down in the other locker room. and he so his locker's right next to mine, and we're sitting there. And
That's how. Just real quick, that's how it works. They have different locker rooms for different.
Certain events when they're higher in stature will have a champions locker room. Like the Masters has a champions locker room that no one is allowed in unless you've won.
Gotcha.
Oh, I mean, it's serious.
Yeah.
So it's also kind of like a prestigious sort of thing. You know, John, it adds more prestige to the win.
Right.
What you're trying to do. But anyway, he takes his shirt off. And I look at him, I'm like, really, dude? I mean, really? And he goes,
you're a golfer. What are you doing?
I'm like, what the? Right. And he goes, I have gained 24 pounds and not changed my waist size. And I had a few choice words for him then too, but I was like, I mean, I was probably 40, and I never lifted. I got the body of like a retired mailman. There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
He is jacked out of his mind right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, his upper body, and if you watch his golf swing, John, he can't move his lower body at all. I was told that anybody else, and that leg's amputated. That leg is amputated.
Huh.
And he was like, you're not cutting my leg off.
Right.
And so, but I mean, when he swings, he is not using the ground for any sort of leverage at all.
Yeah.
It is all hands, all arms. It is, and when he was a kid, I mean, it was crazy, how much he used the ground and how, what he did. And it's so, to watch him, it's like he's playing with one hand behind his back. I don't expect him to play anymore. The U.S. Open, dude, is such an impossible task. You have to have all your game, and you have to be so patient because you're going to get screwed so many times.
Yeah.
With bounces, your ball's not going to stay on the green. You hit this perfect shot because you know what a perfect shot is. You practice it all the time, and then you go out to this week and you're like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that's what the guys are saying. They're just saying to themselves, it doesn't matter. Just keep going. Don't get too, everybody else is getting screwed too. You're trying to do anything you can mentally to keep yourself kind of tricked into thinking that it's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, I remember, I think it was after, Friday maybe, somebody asked DeChambeau what score he thought would win, and he didn't really want to answer, but then they finally said he thought 400 would win the tournament probably. So, but I was going to ask you too real quick, got inducted into the St. Louis Hall of Fame a few years ago, then you got inducted into the Missouri Hall of Fame last year, is that right?
I did. Just incredible honors, man.
Yeah.
Nothing I had ever thought about. I got a call the other day, and there's something going on at the UCLA Hall of Fame, which would be amazing too. So that has not happened yet. But anyway, yeah, just incredible honors, man. I was shocked. So I'll tell you the story. Byron Chives is the guy that runs the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, and I look at my phone, and the phone is ringing. I look at a call from, I don't know where it is in Missouri, like Bolivar, someplace I've never heard of, and I'm like, yeah, nah.
Well, there's so much spam these days. You never know what's.
No, exactly. It wasn't like I was trying to be rude or anything, but I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. And then it calls back. Thing with the voicemail. He calls back, and I'm like, all right, I'll get it. And he's definitely got kind of that Southern Missouri accent sort of thing. And I'm thinking, I don't know why, but I'm thinking, this is my brother, and he lives down in Florida, and somehow he's punking me.
Right, yeah.
So I just kind of play along. I'm like, yeah. And then I don't know, a good solid 45 seconds or so into the conversation, but I realized, oh, shit, this is
real.
My brother. Yeah. And so then I start moonwalking this thing back, and I'm like, geez, I'm sorry. I thought you were kidding, and, I'm so honored. Yeah, so to be able to be recognized for stuff like that, when oftentimes you don't really know if there's anybody watching. I wasn't Tiger Woods. I wanted to be Tiger Woods. I always wanted to be the best player in the world, and I never made it. Was that?
Yeah.
I think I got as high as 51st, and Is that what does that mean to some? It meant a lot to me, but it fell short of what I was aiming at. You know what I mean?
Right. But yeah, but that, I mean, that's great to not just St. Louis, not just the area, the Missouri as well. That's awesome. So, um, let's ask you, do you have, put your fan hat on for a second here. If you had like maybe a Mount Rushmore of your, just as a fan, your favorite golfers over the years, do you have any favorites?
Well, Jack Nicklaus, and I got to tell you a story about Barbara Nicklaus. So next year at the Memorial Tournament, Barbara's going to be the first person, non-golfer, to be honored as a memorial honoree. And Barbara Nicklaus sent a christening gift to my ex-wife and I for the birth of all 4 of my daughters.
Wow, that's awesome.
Seriously, I mean, who does that? So
yeah.
What's really cool, so Payne Stewart was kind of honored yesterday, and Payne was a guy, when I was a senior in high school, I played on the Missouri Cup team with Payne. And Payne was like the Muhammad Ali of golf. He was brash,
yes.
He was cocky, and he just let it rip. Anything that came across his mind, he said it. Okay?
Right.
And I'm a senior in high school. He had just graduated from SMU, and he is like no one I've ever seen before. When I finally get on the PGA Tour, I know him pretty well because we've been playing in some circles together. And right about the time of the second major championship for him at the U.S. Open, he went through this crazy life change, this amazing life change. And
yeah.
he just started seeing things differently and just started making a bunch of changes. And then we wound up, I think it was in either 2000 or 99, and we were at Disney, last tournament of the year, and he was in the locker room, and I had him sign a couple gloves for me for this charity thing I was doing. And shook hands. I said, yeah, I'll see you in January at the Bob Hope, the whole thing, you know. And then he died that day.
Man.
And it was so weird, John,
yeah.
because I realized from that point on, the PGA Tour is way more of a family than I had any idea. So I turned around, I flew home. We hear this horrible story. You know, they're tracking his jet,
yeah.
and it's out of control. Everybody's dead on there and decompress, all this stuff. And, you know, there weren't that many people flying privately back then.
Right.
So we didn't even know. You know, I'm like, what's happened?
Yeah.
You know, so no one really had much idea. And when I turned around and went to his service back in Orlando 4 or 5 days later, the tour showed up, and it was seriously impressive.
Yeah.
And then I remember sitting in the locker room in Memphis, and Phil Mickelson's wife just got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I said, bro, you are going to find out what kind of family the tour is for you.
Yeah.
And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm just telling you, this is really going to be impressive. All the stuff they did for Payne and all that. And I bring that up now because of this tragedy with Grayson Murray. And,
yes.
you know, we have this crazy stigmatism, John, with mental health. And it's like, you know, people are afraid to talk about it. And we got to get over that. We got to figure out a way to change that, because for this kid to think that was the best option sucks.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's terrible. And his family has received an outpouring of support from the PGA Tour they had never imagined.
Right.
It's really, really, really super cool. And yeah, that whole Grayson Murray thing, man, that's just brutal.
Oh, it's
really
heartbreaking,
sad.
yeah. But it is. It's like a fraternity, you know. Basically, it's everybody's. You know, when there's something like that happens, you know, it's nice to know that it is a family, and things like that trump everything, you know.
Yeah, you're literally trying to beat the shit out of each other every
right.
single week, and then when it turns around, you know, and something really meaningful happens, you can count on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really interesting to watch, you know, to watch it all unfold, because I never really considered much of that.
Yeah. One more thing, too. If you could name, like, who you think your top golfers are of all time, but I got a caveat. You can't name Tiger or Jack Nicklaus.
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. No Tiger and no Jack.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, I'll give you a couple sleeper picks in my generation. First of all, Greg Norman. And I'm not a Greg fan.
Right.
When I did the TV for Fox, I mean, we were horseshit. We were terrible. But we did it. We did it for 5 years, and then it went away. And Greg was our lead analyst, and he was awful. I mean, he was just awful. But I got to tell you.
I'm sorry. Was he awful from a just not being very good at the job, or was he kind of condescending, or was he?
Yeah, no. He had a great personality, and I said to him at one point, I said, Shark, you've got a chance to do this like nobody else. You've got a great personality. You've been through all this stuff. I mean, there was a year. How's this, John? There was a year when Greg Norman was in the last group of all four majors.
Right.
And you know how many he won?
You're right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So Greg Norman was ridiculous. A guy that I got to play with a lot that is incredibly underrated now. I'm not going to tell you he's the best golfer in the world, but Fuzzy Solar was unbelievable.
Yeah.
He was unbelievable, and he was so much damn fun.
Right.
Oh my gosh, is he fun to play with, hang around with, drink with.
He's not a guy that's going to get on Tiger's weight program. he's just
that would be correct.
It's just old school. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, John Daly was so far above the curve when he came out. He was so much. But you want to talk. Part of this thing, Bud, is managing your life.
Right.
I mean, it's got to be.
Yeah.
It's absolutely got to be, because if you can't get to the course, if you beat up your body, you don't take care of it, yada yada, it's not going to work. But John Daly, I'll tell you a fun John Daly story. John had a home on the 16th fairway at the TPC Southwind in Memphis. He had a big Razorback painted on the bottom of his pool.
Right.
And he comes in and has a barbecue and invites some of his friends over. So I played a ton of golf with John as a kid.
Yeah.
And John's from, Arkansas, we didn't have much in terms of junior golf. So John invited me. We go over there. John's got in his office 6 or 7 grocery bags. These are not plastic. These are paper full of $100 bills.
Oh, my gosh.
Full of $100 bills. I don't know how much money's in there.
Yeah.
But it is more money than I've ever seen.
Right.
By a long shot. And I said, dude, what? And he goes, Tunica. I'm just killing. So Tunica is only like 20 minutes or so away from his house, and he loves to gamble.
Right, yes.
So I'm like, bro, you got to,
Oh, yeah.
Those places,
Yeah. Yeah,
lights come on every day. You got to. So when I had John on my show, I asked him, and I'm telling you this because John Daly's got to be in the conversation because that's how good he was.
Right.
Because he won 2 major championships and only probably 5 or 6 tournaments. But I'm telling you, this guy was so good.
Yes.
And the touch that he had, John.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great putter, not a good putter. He's a great wedge player, not good. He's great. And it's oh gosh, it's just unbelievable. So I said to John, how much have you lost? What do you think?
Yeah.
And, John is the great. If you had dinner with John Daly, you would just go, this dude's awesome.
This is
I don't want to marry to my sister, but he's awesome.
Yes, yeah.
You know what I mean?
He's got a little bit of a Barkley kind of a thing to him. Do you think? Kind of just says whatever, just real entertaining
real
and
fact.
Right.
Yeah, real matter of fact. If you don't like it, that's okay. I'll just keep moving on.
Right.
So he says in about 3 seconds, leave 50. So I was playing with John at Memphis, and we're on the 12th green, and I was going through a divorce. He said, hey, man, I heard you're going through a divorce. I said, yep. He goes, how's it going? I go, how do you think it's going? It sucks. It's no good at all. And he said, I said to him, we're walking on to the 13th tee, and we hit our drives, and he has this big duck hook out there, and I hit this little moon-washed fade to the right, so we are 80 yards apart. And we're walking off the tee, and I said, dude, what are you paying each month in alimony?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, man, let me see. And he started trying to remember all of his ex-wives. It was like there was Betty, and there was, he married Bob Hope Chrysler Classic. a girl had one of those, had Bob, had Hope, he
Yeah.
married Hope one year. And I think that he had his son from her.
Oh, my.
But we started walking off the tee, John, and he was headed to the left, as I said, and I was headed to the right. And we get up on the green, and I've got like a 12-footer for birdie, and he walks behind me, and he says, about 75, and walks around. My head snaps. I'm like, 75? What? He's like 75 grand a month.
Oh, my gosh. Jeez.
And that was like 2006.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man.
so
Do you,
that makes him one of the best players.
yeah, yeah, no kidding. Do you look at him as kind of a cautionary tale, or do you look at him as like, hey, what the hell, he had a great time, and everybody knows he's famous and he's had has a great time? I mean, how do you look at him, really, his body of work, I guess?
I gotta tell you, I look at it a lot like I look at Tiger Woods, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Do you realize what we'd be talking about if Tiger Woods could manage his personal life better?
Right. Oh, I know. Yes.
If 2009 Thanksgiving doesn't happen, he doesn't get hit with a club, he doesn't fall asleep on his neighbor's front yard, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Tiger Woods has 30 majors and 150 wins. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I think
That's how
yeah.
good he was.
Right. Yeah, there was
And
there was him and there's everybody else for.
yeah.
Yeah. That's why they were talking about,
There's no question. I mean,
Yeah.
I do outings with Hank. I did an outing with Hank Kane.
Yeah.
He's a real interesting guy. And Hank starts this thing out by saying, I got to work with the best player of all time, and when we worked together, he won 24% of his tournaments. Now, do you know what Jack Nicklaus' winning percentage is?
What?
Under 10.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just crazy.
That is miles. That is miles. I mean, Tiger went for like, was it 12 years without missing a cut? I mean, that isn't, the stuff that Tiger had was remarkable.
Right.
And you know, John, when you start talking about all this live shit and all this other stuff, and by the way, we're really, really close to having a deal done.
Yeah.
We're really, really close to having a deal done. If you want to see Tiger get more involved, start making his wins less significant. Start adding things to the schedule that are gonna take away from his legacy, and then you're gonna see Tiger involved in everything.
Right.
It's not money, and it's not anything else. It's legacy.
Yeah.
him.
Yes.
And so he's protecting that PGA Tour thing, man, like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, going to go ahead and stop that one right there. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember, part 2 of this will come out on Thursday night, and it is him answering questions that I took from my buddies, and we also get into some other stuff too. I mean, we kind of just shoot the bull the whole time, but he gives great advice, and again, it's just loose, having fun. He's hilarious. So, part 2, look out for that on Thursday night. Hope you enjoyed part 1, and that's that.